And welcome back. One of the big topics during this legislative session will be judicial selection, how we select our Supreme Court justices and our appellate judges. That's it's going to be a very critical thing that the legislature will do, and a pretty hot topic.
Well, this isn't the first time the legislature has been asked to take a look at this issue. Back when I was in the Senate in 2008, your guest that's going to be on soon, Dr. Ware, came and addressed the Judiciary Committee when I was on it, and it's been percolating around ever since. It's readily apparent that there's some catalysts driving that question, that being school finance and the Montoy decision.
Yep.
It is a unique system, and I'm sure the good doctor there will be able to explain it in greater depth, but let's go to him.
Well, we'll bring Steve Ware in right now, and Steve Ware joins us. He's at our sister station, WIBW in Topeka. And Dr. Ware, we appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about the history of this situation first. As Judge Journey mentioned a moment ago, this isn't the first time that the legislature has taken a look.
Well, I've been doing academic research on judicial selection around the country since the 1990s, and especially in the last 6 or 7 years have focused my attention on the issue. And my research shows that the Kansas Supreme Court selection process has 3 flaws. It's undemocratic, it's extreme, and it's secretive. And all 3 of those problems can and should be fixed.
What do you mean when you say it's extreme?
Well, the Kansas Supreme Court nominating commission is at the center of our process. Nobody can become a judge on our Kansas Supreme Court unless they're one of the 3 favorites of this commission. This commission has tremendous power. It selects the 3 finalists from which the governor must pick a justice. And so the important question is, who selects the commission? Who picks the pickers? And that's where Kansas is extreme. No other state does it the way Kansas does, which makes sense because Kansas has a tremendously undemocratic system. We have a majority of our commission here selected in elections that are only open to about 10,000 people, the members of the state bar. The other millions of people in Kansas have no vote in these elections. So this plainly violates basic democratic equality, the principle of one person, one vote.
But wouldn't
it makes a lawyer's vote worth much more than a non-lawyer's vote.
But wouldn't the state bar be pretty uniquely qualified to help in this selection process?
Well, when you compare how other states do it, they also gain the expertise of lawyers in selecting good judges. And the judges selected in the Kansas process are no better than the judges selected in alternative appointment processes, such as a Senate confirmation process. We have in the U.S. Constitution for federal judges a process where the president nominates and the U.S. Senate votes to confirm. That system has worked well to pick federal judges for over 200 years, and about a dozen states use a similar system where the governor nominates judges and the state senate or a similar body votes to confirm those judges. And those judges are every bit as good as the judges we have here in Kansas, so you don't have to trade off judicial quality against democratic legitimacy. You can have a democratic system that treats all citizens equally and still get a high-quality judiciary.
Dr. Ware, what would you say to critics who contend that the main reason this is happening is punitive and it deals with Montoy? What would your thoughts be there?
Well, I travel around the country speaking on judicial selection in a wide variety of states, and my writings cover all 50 states. I advocate this system of Senate confirmation in all states, regardless of the leanings of the particular judges on that state's Supreme Court or the political leanings of the governor or the state Senate at that time. I really think this is an issue to look at over the long term. When you change the Constitution to change how we select our state's highest courts, we ought not to be focused on a recent case or two or a current issue, a current judge. We ought to be thinking long-term, what's best across the generations as society evolves and the political winds change. And that's where I think the test of time is really proven that the founders of the U.S. Constitution had it right. A Senate confirmation system is the best way to go.
So you just believe this is the right thing to do?
Yeah, it's a matter of principle. To have democratic equality, have equal voice for all citizens, and not allow one small group to have vastly disproportionate power. And it's particularly bad in Kansas because not only does our current system concentrate tremendous power on a small group of people, but we allow that small group of people to exercise that power behind closed doors. The vote of the nominating commission is a secret vote. So there's no accountability. Journalists and other citizens are not able to determine which members of the commission supported which candidates or opposed which candidates. In contrast, the Senate confirmation vote is public, and so the people can see who's voting which way.
I want to bring Chapman Rackaway from Fort Hays State University into the conversation as well. Chapman, Kansas is pretty unique in the way that we select our Supreme Court judges. Is that accurate, you think?
We take an established model, which is most states, about 33 states, have variations of what's known as the Missouri Plan, which is a merit and nomination system for judges, and we tweak it. Now, we can't talk about judicial selection without unpacking it a little bit from history. Yes, judicial independence is very important, partly because political appointments by the governor was what got us to this kind of Frankenstein's monster system that we have now. There was a phenomenon known as the triple play of 1956, where the governor stepped down, put the lieutenant governor in the governor's position so that the then acting governor could appoint the former governor to the Kansas Supreme Court. So they wanted to create an insulation between Cedar Crest and the judiciary, and that's why we have the system that we have now. What Governor Brownback is talking about is putting that power back into the governor's hands, and ironically, that would then create greater power in the governorship and would not provide the level of independence that Dean Ware is talking about.
Phil, that's a good point, and that's, I think, what critics of this would say.
Well, it's important to remember that the old system that Chapman talks about was one where the governor simply made the appointment.
Yeah.
And now there's the proposals, there are 7 proposals. The one that Mr. Ware's talking about, there's still a check in the system of checks and balances in that the governor couldn't just appoint anybody and they take office. They have to still be confirmed by the Senate. Mm-hmm. There's a possibility of vetting the candidate in the Senate through committee hearings with witnesses and testimony, and then ultimately it's the Senate's decision. And, you know, they're usually pretty independent guys, those senators. So it's not quite what, we're not turning the clock back to 1956. And by the way, the governor had lost the election there and he decided he still needed a job. But that's why he did that shenanigan.
Well, the triple play was a pretty interesting historical footnote for the state of Kansas. Dr. Ware, to be fair in this whole situation, this is a little different than where we were in 56. Go ahead.
Judge Journey is right that the lesson of the triple play is that the governor should not have unchecked power to appoint judges. The real debate here is who should be the check on the governor. Should it be the bar or should it be the state senate? And then should the check be exercised in a secret vote or a public vote? And the vast majority of states have chosen to use a far more democratic system than Kansas has. Almost half the states elect their Supreme Courts, like you in Sedgwick County have elected district court judges like Judge Journey. And then, as I said, about a dozen states use a version of the federal model of Senate confirmation. So it's actually just a handful of states, about 9, that use a system even remotely like Kansas is in terms of empowering the bar, and no state empowers the bar as much as Kansas does. We are truly extreme, one of a kind, unique.
Well, currently, Dr. Ware, there are 5 folks selected by the bar, is that correct? And then 4
That's correct, 5 of 9.
Okay, and then where do the other 4 come from?
Governor.
The governor?
The other 4 come from the governor. So there's a Democratic legitimacy to the other 4, and you can have a nominating commission with Democratic legitimacy. There are a variety of models around the country where members of the legislature appoint members of the commission, or the Attorney General appoints members of the commission. So the problem is not so much having a commission or having lawyers on the commission. The problem is really who selects the commission, who picks the pickers.
All right, we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion. Stick around, we'll be back in 2 minutes. And welcome back. We're talking about judicial selection, and Dr. Steve Ware from the Cady School of Law is joining us. And Dr. Ware, we're going to just start with you right back after the break. And a couple of different options that the governor is asking for, potentially just an election of, for example, Supreme Court justices straight by the people, or having the governor appoint and then go through a process with the Senate. Which do you favor, or do you have a different plan?
No, both of those would satisfy the democratic test and fix the big problem our current system has, that it lacks democratic legitimacy, and would remove the secrecy from the system we have now. I personally think it's better to have an indirectly democratic system, Senate confirmation system, like we have in the U.S. Constitution for federal judges. I think that's worked very well at the federal and state level in the states that have it, and that it's a great model for Kansas to follow, to really move into the mainstream of the country rather than its current extreme position.
And Doctor, one of the concerns I think that people have with a plan for the people to elect those justices is the fact that the campaigning gets so nasty, and we see that occasionally here in Sedgwick County, don't we, Phil?
Yes, we do.
So that is one area where I think people say that maybe that wouldn't be the best plan. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly right. Electing judges, and particularly re-electing judges, raises a lot of concerns. And the beauty of our U.S. Constitution system for federal judges is that even if there's politics at the front end in selecting judges, and you really can't get rid of that, there will always be politics in any system, once a federal judge is on the bench, then that judge is free to apply the law fairly and do what's right, do what the law requires, even if it may not always be popular. Sometimes the law is complicated, and doing the ruling the way the law requires can sometimes be caricatured in an unfair way. And so you do see judicial campaigns occasionally treating judges unfairly. And it's really just something to avoid if we can, and fortunately we can, because the U.S. Constitution is a great model.
Chapman Rackway of Fort Hays State University wants you to jump in here for a moment. If we went to a system where the governor actually chose a group or chose a nominee, and then the Senate had to confirm, in the short term, I think the criticism again would be that it gives a lot of power to the governor, although the Senate does have to confirm. But in the long term, maybe it wouldn't matter so much, because eventually it would all even out, I would think.
Yeah, that's right, and it would certainly mirror the federal system, which has worked very well for a couple of hundred years now. So moving to a gubernatorial appointed position with a confirmation, as long as there is another check in the system, is perfectly fine, and certainly a lot better than the elected model, because the other thing that we know from the federal system is that the independence of the judiciary from the pressures of elections help them make the decisions that the other branches tend to shirk towards them. Montoy and the new decision are certainly state-level examples of the court stepping in to do what they believe the elected bodies won't do.
Redistricting might be another one that pops into the brain.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Phil, I want to get you to wrap us up. We've got about a minute left in the segment. You know what it's like to be an elected judge.
Yes.
What about an appointed with a confirmation process?
Well, currently in Kansas, about half of the state judicial districts are appointed with retention, and we're going to have a judge appointed in the district court soon to fill Tony Powell's spot, as he was appointed to the Kansas Court of Appeals. And then the other half, like Sedgwick County, are elected. And so each have their own foibles. Judges that are appointed stand for retention elections every 6 years, and once in a great blue moon, someone gets defeated in that retention election. In elected districts, they're still very difficult to unseat a seated judge in a contested election. Generally, the Bar Association gets involved on one side and the other. Sometimes they can make a difference, sometimes they can't. Elected judges, I think, have an argument that they're more responsive, but there are times that judges have to make very difficult decisions that are very unpopular. And if a judge does the right thing, they have to put their own personal beliefs aside and follow the law. They don't write the law. So that's the difficulty in it for many judges, in that you just have to do the right thing, even though it's unpopular.
All right. Let's take another commercial break and we'll come back.